All right, well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our lead solutions engineer. Today, Dion will be giving you a short demo at the beginning, but mostly he's here to answer your questions. So at any point, including right now, you could go ahead and type your Alpha Anywhere questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's begin. Hello, Dion, are you there? Let me take you off mute so I can hear you.
Yes, I am. How's that coming through?
Coming through loud and clear. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter.
Excellent.
And
there we
in a
go.
moment now, we should see your screen. There it is. Excellent.
All right. Dynamite. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for our weekly webinar and Q&A. As Dave mentioned, we always appreciate your questions. In fact, we got some in via email, kind of late minute. We're going to try and cover some of those, and we love to hear from you. That's what it really helps drive what we present, what we focus on here. So today, excuse me, we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to talk about what's our next series of webinar topics, which will be very entertaining and very fun. And then I have a couple tips and tricks to go over today, just kind of little things I've come across that I'd like to share with everybody and show how that works. And as always, we have our esteemed colleague, Sarah, who does an amazing job on the documentation, who is here to help us out and also answer any documentation questions or anything along those lines. We always look forward to people giving us input on how we can make our documentation more powerful, simpler, to make your life easier as far as executing and being able to get things done quickly. Always a good one there. So again, if you have any questions, take the time to go to the questions area of our GoToWebinar control panel, enter in them there, and we'll go from there. But with that, what I first want to talk about is coming up in a very short months. I mean, now we're at the end of June, so July, August, September, like 3 months away. It's crazy how fast this year's going. But I would like everybody to take some time and check it out. We're going to have our annual, I'm like moving it right here. Wait, where's the DevCon? There it is, under resources. Our DevCon coming up in October, and just to continue to have great stuff being developed. And presented at that. You're going to see some amazing things around Alpha Transform, huge enhancements around Alpha Anywhere, and a lot more coming. And so it's your opportunity to meet and greet directly with the developers and with our teams. Register now by going to the DevCon 2018. It is in Orlando, great place, and actually, I'm really excited. We've got our tickets and everything's ready to go. It's going to be here before you know it. We're almost through midsummer. It's crazy. So take the time to check that out, and you can see on here if you're curious about the agenda. We have online the agenda along with who the different case studies are going to be, the technical sessions that we're going to be doing, and it's really going to allow you to go after what you care about. So we've definitely set it up so if you have different requirements like for IIS or mobile or web apps or styling apps, etc. We're going to have those really cool sessions that will dive into those at a very deep level. And we also have Q&A panels where you can actually ask the developers themselves information. So there's a very broad capability, but also with the different tracks, you're going to be able to focus in on what's important to you. So you can really come away with a very powerful set of knowledge and relationships and information. Okay. So today, what I want to do is announce for our next series, just to give you a heads up, we are not going to be doing these webinars for the next 2 weeks. Next Wednesday is July 4th. So for you in the US, we're off. For people outside the US, we're off. So just to let you know, we're not going to be available then. And then the next week after, I'm out of pocket. Our team has got a bunch of stuff going on, so we're not able to do it. But when we come back, we dive into the year of the API. And I guess this should be really the half year of the API since we're starting this series halfway through the year.
It'll be the third quarter of the API.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be the quarter of the API or something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to dive into APIs. And this is how we're going to progress. And the idea behind it is first, API-centric design is a incredibly powerful momentum in the industry, meaning that more and more people are taking what's called an API-centric design methodology. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a bit about the API economy, because APIs are obviously a fundamental technical issue, but the technical capabilities of APIs has unleashed an enormous amount of potential income and sort of business value. And we want to talk about that because that is something that you can apply to yourself and also as developers. You can help your clients take advantage of this new API economy. And it's very exciting, very interesting. And I have some very cool sort of stats to share with you as to what the impact of this new API-centric design in a company. Then we're going to talk a bit about APIs themselves and kind of talk about the different flavors and the different capabilities. Then we dive into sort of the alpha-centric aspect of it, is first consuming APIs, i.e. if other people have APIs and you want to use those within your product, how do you do that? And then very exciting, if you would like to take your functionality in your system and then wrap it in an API and provide that to outside people, Alpha Anywhere now has built-in functionality to be able to do that, which is extremely powerful and really will dovetail into our API economy. And then we also want to talk about the Alpha Transform API, which is an ideal example of Alpha and what we can do to integrate with Transform together to kind of get the best of both worlds. And we've been doing some really fun and exciting experiments with that. And it's just amazing where, because you have an API available, you can take very innovative angles towards solving your problems. No more is it just it only does one way. With APIs, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, and it's very, very exciting and very interesting. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. So that will be our series. Again, we're going to start that in 2 weeks. I guess that would be 3 weeks from today. So the next 2 weeks we're off, but then we'll start that in July. And we're really excited about it. There's a lot of really good data. There's going to be hands-on kind of stuff we're going to go through that you'll be able to see exact examples. And we've really been putting this together. And obviously it's enabled by all the the new capabilities that have been added to Alpha. And what we're seeing, which is very interesting, and this is just kind of a higher level, Alpha is obviously embracing a API-centric design and technology methodology, primarily because our end clients are really embracing it. We want to support their requirements and their business value generation focus. But beyond that, it's triggering a lot of things internally in terms of how we approach building out our products. And so it's really exciting, and it's really going to lead to accelerated capabilities and more flexibility and just a phenomenal set of new capabilities that you'll see roll out towards the later part of this year. So very cool stuff. And we are excited to be able to share with you this information, and we'll be doing it as soon as we're back online. Good tease, huh? It's like, hey, all this great stuff. Oh, gotta wait 2 weeks. Good luck. Yeah, take some time. Okay, so with that, I'd like to now kind of turn it over and talk about a few tips and tricks. Dun, dun, dun. I used to use stupid pet tricks, but that was a little too close to the bone for me, so I went to tips and tricks. So we're going to talk about some tips and tricks, and I've got 2 of them I'd like to talk about today, and then we'll dive into the questions portion of our presentation. So first is the newer friendly dates capability. This is really cool stuff. And if you haven't started using it, it really allows you to create very interesting user experiences. And that's one of the key aspects. It's one thing to have the core functionality, but if you can provide a user interface and a user experience to your users that just take a little bit more load off them, help them understand things quicker, that's what you're able to do with this. And then also I want to talk about a little, and this has to do with kind of the restructuring of the in the latest releases of Alpha, there's been some slight restructuring of the web projects control panel, and they're subtle yet super powerful and really cool. And with that, I want to talk about one area which is called JavaScript Actions, and I'm going to dive in and show you that. So with that, while I'm going to switch over into the development environment, go ahead and in there. I'd like you to go ahead and if you have any questions, make sure to get those in while I'm doing this. So with that, I'm going to jump over. I am going to go ahead and go into my Alpha development environment. Let's go to my default here. I'm starting to get there. Okay. Starting to get more organized slowly but surely. As you can see, what I'm doing, starting to do, and this is just like maybe another little tip and trick, is that since I use this development environment for all my demonstrations, I'm starting to kind of break it into sub-projects that focus on different topics, say control bars, file work, working with Google, security, doing testing things, web services, Viewbox. And so obviously, if you're doing a project, usually you'll have like a back office project and a front office, but this is how I do it just to help me keep organized. So the project capability here is very powerful because it allows you to segment. So if I only want to look at things where I'm doing file work, then I see a subset. So it kind of filters things for me nicely, and it allows me to organize my work more efficiently. So that's just a little hint there. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a new UX. Now I'm going to demonstrate it in a UX, but this capability works both in a grid and a UX. It's a core functionality between the two of those. So I'll go here. And I would normally pick one of my incredible and more expanding templates, but I'm going to click and create a blank one right here. Okay, so I'm in my UX builder. I'm going to go ahead and add a text box in here, and I'll call it my cool date. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as friendly dates. I've already got one in there, so I'll go friendly date to _UX. Okay. Now I'm going to do a couple things. First is right now this is a text box. What I'm going to go over here and you'll see on the right hand side, and actually a little quick process check. Dave, everything able to be seen okay?
Yes, it sure is.
Okay, good. Just want to do that and make sure it's okay. So I'm going to change this to a date field. So you'll notice I have a control type, but I can tell it what kind of information is there. And that's actually very cool because it does a couple things. Now that Alpha knows what kind of content is going to be in that text box, they can adjust things. Like, let me go back and change it to character. And I'm going to go into the validation rules. And you'll see I have a whole bunch of things that say, like, for instance, for a character field, do I allow letters, white space, digits? But if I change this to a numeric and I go into my validation rules, you'll see that I have a different set because it goes, oh, wait, you're not going to have alphanumeric. You're going to have numbers. So is it an integer? Is it a fixed decimal variable? And so the system understands what kind of data is going to go into a field. So a text box is a text box. You can put dates, times, alphanumeric, a numeric, etc. And those are all allowed in a text box. But by giving this the definition of what is the type of the data, then we can kind of tune it up so it's easier for you to do the things you need to do. So I'm also going to go back here to date. And then also you'll notice down here, now that I have a date, I also have down here date and time picker properties. So I'll go ahead and say I want a date time picker. Okay, and I'll do that. So let's see, where is it? Where's my, just want to make sure I have that all there. Friendly date. Okay, so now I can go into mine here and I can have my date. And you'll notice that now that I have a date, it's done two things. It's put a little date time picker selection, and I can go here and put that in here, and it selects the date. So let's go ahead and make this a little wider so we can see there. So width is 50%. So we see a little bit wider on the screen, so we get a little bit better idea. That's probably a little overkill there. Let's go back here and just make this 25% of the screen. Okay. So now I'm going to go here, do the working preview, and now we have something there. So I can go in there and select those dates. But now you'll notice that the dates are numeric, are not numeric, but they're literal. And I can change the formatting and stuff like that. But if I put this date right here, and I put that date in there, okay, so I know it's a date, but I don't necessarily know what is that relationship to where I am today, or in the past, or in the future. And that's what friendly dates is all about, is it allows you to go in, and now when you display that date, it can actually display it using what's called friendly dates, which translates the view and vision of how it goes. So let's go here, go friendly. Okay, by the way, that's another tip and trick. I'm like, where the heck is my friendly field? There's a setting I can do to say, here, this is where it is right here. But as you can see, there's so many settings. What I did is I went up here to this properties. This is all the properties that are available for this text box. So I'm going to start typing friendly. When I do it, limits this or it filters it. So I can go right here and it takes me right to where I want to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I want to display this as a friendly date. So I do. And you'll notice that when I do that, I now have a friendly date display settings. So before I do anything, let's go ahead and do working preview. And let's select our date. Okay. Oh, is that on? I wonder if I can do it on a pick here. Let me check something real quick. I want to make sure I didn't screw this up. Date, yeah, see. Okay. Yeah, let me go back here and go in here. I'm just going to set the default date here so we can see it. So let's say 6-25/2018. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. It's probably because I haven't set my date here. Let me go back in here and change my friendly date for probably because I have, but I haven't specified it. So let me do this. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay. Yeah, my problem is what I did just, and a hint there, is I enabled the friendly date functionality, but I didn't define how it should be done. So it kind of threw something off. So, but notice something real quick. Now that I've set this friendly date, and in this case, let me walk through that a little closer. So I first said display this date time using friendly dates. And there's two different primary ways of displaying that. One is calendar orientated and the other is relative. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about that, but the calendar is sort of a user-friendly way to explain what you would see on a calendar. And I'll show you that in a moment. Relative is relative to the current date and time. So I'll show you that also in a moment. So and you'll notice we have the ability to kind of set a certain date and time and see what that would be there. So now I can go in here and you'll notice something. Oh, last Monday. Why is it saying last Monday? Well, just to let you know, I set the default to be 6/25/2018, which by the way, was earlier this week, last Monday. So now let's go ahead and select today, the 27th, and check it out. Notice it says today. It doesn't say the date. It says today, or I can go this, yesterday, or this, tomorrow. So that's really powerful. And I want to stop here for a moment to explain how powerful that is that we live in a very fast-paced environment. And if you can relieve your clients from understanding something. So a great example of that is I built a little calendaring system where what I want to do is show the tasks the user has and when they're due. So I could put a list together or this, and I could show the friendly dates, and I could say, hey, the date for this event is the 29th. Well, someone can look, like if I put this here and I just I showed, like, actually, why don't I do that real quick so we can see how that looks right there. And I'll go test. So we can compare and contrast them. Okay. Okay, and actually what so we'll go ahead and go in here and I'll select this Friday and I'm going to select this Friday. So let's go ahead and make this a little wider. Okay, so I'm going to pick this next Friday. So that says 6/29 and I say this, which makes more sense? Which can you analyze very quickly? You go 6/29, what is that? We don't, we have to think about what that date would be. But if I said, hey, this Friday, you would immediately understand, oh, I get it, that's a couple days away. Whereas 6/29, you go, okay, first I've got to translate it into what day that is in terms of my perspective on the world and there. And also very powerful, if I pick this and I go like this, guess what? Tomorrow, I just inherently know what tomorrow is. So when you display this to the user, it reduces their mental time they have to kind of translate it to, so they can immediately understand it much faster than translating the dates. And this is very powerful for anywhere you're like doing task management or scheduling kind of activities by showing them a user-friendly way to do this. So let's do this. I'm going to pick next Wednesday. So I picked next Wednesday. Check it out when I go here, it's Wednesday. Now, this is showing a date, and that's called the calendar. And that's where I'm going to go in and talk about relative. So when I select this, it is doing its best to say, for instance, today, tomorrow, and yesterday kind of scenario. Those are built in on calendaring standpoints. But if you notice, I go to the next week, next 4th, then it's saying Wednesday. Well, that's the day of the week kind of scenario. But we can go into this now, and I'm going to change my friendly date to be relative. Okay. So now I've said this date is relative. So let's go back in and do an experiment here. And I'm going to select next Wednesday. So that's the 4th of July, which, by the way, we will not be here. I don't mean to be mean, but just want to make sure people don't waste their time logging in. But now I'm going to do that here. Check that out in 7 days. So it's doing a relative understanding and putting a user-friendly text, but we can change this when we want to. We can go into and optimize that. So, we go scopes to years and the precision, and you'll see here are some examples. 2 hours ago, 3 days, and 1 year, and 1 year and 3 months, etc. Today, Friday, etc. So this allows you to do that and, excuse me, allow you to set these different display things. And what you're going to find is that people are going to like it because they're going to get very user-friendly experiences. So they have to do less translation when they see a date on the screen. It's just going to tell them, oh, guess what? That's tomorrow. It's due tomorrow, etc. And it makes it a lot easier for people to assume. And as you can see, Alpha is doing all of it. You have control. You can modify the behavior, the scope, specify which parts of the date to use for it. And you can also do what's called precision, so seconds, etc. How precise do you want it to be? And you can do some testing where you can say, you can actually go in there and put in the sample date and time, or you can select a date, and you'll notice that it's saying 2 weeks, 12 hours, 21 minutes, 55 seconds ago. So you can actually test it right within here. And you notice this is my fixed date I'm referencing to. If I hit refresh, you see it's just refreshing what this value is per what the current time is on the clock from there. So that's called friendly dates. It's something that's easy to implement. All you have to do is enable it. And then make sure you've selected that it's a type of date from your drop down here. It's usable both in a grid and also usable in a UX. So both of those are available. So you can use it in those places. I believe it's also available if I make this a label. Let me go ahead and do this a label. Let's see here. So if I'm not necessarily editing it, but I'm setting a date, I wonder, does it work with the label? Let's see here. No, I don't know if that works with a label. Yep, I was wrong. It just works with the text box kind of scenario because it's doing that translation. Let's see what that looks like now. Yep, now with the label here. But a very, very flexible, easy way to improve your user interfaces to allow them to say, oh, I'm picking a date. Oh, that's 2 weeks ago. Let's pick a date tomorrow, etc. And you can play with that from there. So that is called friendly dates, and handy and useful and in the latest release, and have fun with that. So if there's any questions on that, I'm going to go ahead and go into the next section, but we'll cover those in a few minutes. So please go ahead and go to your GoToWebinar control panel, put that into the questions section, and we'll go from there. But now let's talk about JavaScript Actions. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create a new UX here. And I want to go through a quick demonstration to explain what this works. So I'm going to go here. I've created a new UX, a form for people who are new. I've just created a new blank UX here. I've clicked here to add a button. And I'm going to add that button. I'm going to say show message. Okay. So what I want to do is when I click on this button, I want to show a message. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new action here. So I double clicked on the button. It opened up my action JavaScript builder. I click add new action. As you can see, we have a bajillion here. And so I want to do, actually, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and just keep it simple here. So I'm going to do a message box. And I'm going to say, hello team. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And I'm saving it. I'll save this action JavaScript UX. Okay, go to working preview, click this, and a message comes up. Not exactly earth-shattering, but stick with me. Now what I want to do is I would actually like to also do something else. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into, and I'm going to add also a, let's see, where is it? It's not a container, it's a other controls placeholder. Okay, I'm going to put a placeholder in here. And what I'd like to do is go in here and I'm going to add a new action. And I'm going to show a second message here, just to show how you can have, it's right there at the beginning. I'm going to say, is it a message? No. I want to do, let's see, I'm trying to think of another good action I can do real quick that's interesting. I'm going to just do this. Okay. Let me fix this. Sorry. Should have pre-built this so we didn't waste time, but let me go ahead and do this here. I'm going to add also a container here. And I'm going to add a piece of static text in there. And I'm going to say, so now we have those pieces here. So test from here. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and keep it simple here. Okay. Actually, oh no, I know what I'm going to do. Bear with me. Thanks for your patience. I'm going to add a map here. I'll go map. Okay. And what I'm going to do is go in here. I'm going to add a new action. And I'm going to use my Google Map method. And I'm going to select the map and I want to add a marker to the map. And I'm just going to put, is it 70 Blanchard Road, I think?
70.
70. I'm off by 3 there.
Yeah.
And that's in Burlington, Massachusetts. What's the zip code there?
01803.
I should know that, but I don't.
That's all right.
Okay. And let me do one thing. I'm going to freeze my screen for just a second here because I don't want everybody to see my magic API key. Otherwise, I'm sure I get billed for it. Not that I don't trust anybody, but no, I trust everybody. Basically, what I'm doing is you need to have, obviously, when you have a map, you need to use a Google Maps API key. There we go. Okay.
For those unfamiliar, that's a new-ish requirement from Google. You used to be able to use Google Maps without an API key. Now you need one, and you need to supply them with a credit card, although they often don't, they won't charge you unless you go above a certain amount of usage, and it's a pretty
Which is
high
pretty
amount of
hefty.
usage. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're Uber. Okay, so let's watch what happens here. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do a live preview. Always fun to do a full preview there, so I'll do that. Okay, so remember we have 2 actions. So notice that this is defaulted to a map location. So when I click this button, I want to show the message and update the map. So I'm going to click here. You'll see I got the message, and you'll see now, voila, there is my map. All cool. The reason I wanted to do this is that on this button, I'm doing these 2 separate action JavaScript methods. Now, let's say for giggles, I wanted to create a new button and I wanted to do the same thing. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to my button here and I'm going to add a button in here and I could add those actions here. Now, the challenge you're going to have is that over time, you're going to add this button, you're going to add some action JavaScript in there. So I'll just go ahead and do this. So I've added this action JavaScript there. Then I'm going to add another button. And in that button, I'm going to add a new action that does something else, like shows a fade out message here. And actually, that's what I wanted to show before. So you can go through and do there. The problem now is like, well, when I need to manage those actions, I have to go first to the button and then open up here to modify that there. Now, for simple apps, that's not a big deal. I wouldn't worry about that too much. But when you start getting a little bit more complex, you get into a situation where you're going to have things kind of buried in these different buttons. And so you can get a little confused, like, well, where did that go? Or what did that do? Or let's say I want to change something. I have to go find the button. I have to open it up. I have to edit it and go from there. Well, there's a different methodology, and we highly recommend you do this. Okay. So if I look at this, I wanted to have sort of a behavior on this. So what I can do now is instead of going into the button and adding a new action there, I can now go over here to the left, and you'll see for people who are on a little, they may not be on the most current, it's going to look a little different. You're not going to see this JavaScript Actions text right here. That's been added in one of the new release because we want to encourage this behavior. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to JavaScript Actions. It's going to open up my JavaScript Actions. By the way, it used to be put right here. So this was always available right here, but the decision was made to take this button, which does the exact same thing, and put it here because we want to encourage this behavior, which is the following. I'm going to click JavaScript action. I'm going to add a new action. I'm going to go show message and map. Okay. It's created a JavaScript action. Nothing does on this, so I'm going to go ahead and edit that action. And now I'm going to go through, I'm going to show my message box. And I'm going to add my next one, which is map, which is, oops, actually, that's not the one. Say that. I'm going to go here real quick. And I'll go to this here and grab this. So I know it's there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my JavaScript actions here. I'm going to add that one. I'm going to add my new action, which is my map action. And I'm going to set the map. I'm going to set the app to explicit direction there. So essentially, this is the same thing that I did on that button, but now it's in this action JavaScript here. Okay, so far so good. I've got my JavaScript action there, and I've got my button. And currently, my button, and I'll go ahead and delete this, my button doesn't do anything. So now what I want to do is when I click this button, I want to run this action, show message and map. So now what I'm going to do is I've created at here my core function. Now I want to go here to this button, and I'm going to go to I'm going to go to text mode, and then I'm going to go action JavaScript, insert code to run a JavaScript action. And when I click this, and again, I'm in text mode, I go here, it gives me a list of the actions I've done. So I go there and I click OK. And so what this does is when the person clicks this button, it actually says, oh, I'm going to go look for that action JavaScript, and I'm going to do that there. So I'm going to click save. And you know what? I want to have another button on here, and I'm going to have it do the same thing. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that message there. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'll go back in here. We have our original button, but I have two new buttons. So I'm going to click this button right here. Shows the message, does it. Going to click this button, and as it should, shows the message and then updates the map. So here is the cool thing. Let's say I go, you know what? I want to put another message to show after I update the map. So now, instead of finding the button, I can go right here. I can find my action JavaScript. I can edit it. I can add a new action. I'll just show a new message here. So now it's going to show a message. I'm going to do the Google map, and I'm going to show the message box. I'm going to go ahead and save. Now, if I go into my working preview, I click this button right here, shows the message, and updates my map. By the way, JavaScript is asynchronous. That's why the two messages showed first and then the map updated. I can actually go in and adjust that there. And I go here, a sample message, and it updates the map. You don't see the update happening there. Now here's the power. Oh, I've got to make a change. You'll notice I didn't have to go into every one of these buttons and re-edit that. So already I'm centralizing my JavaScript actions into a certain part. The other thing that's really powerful is over time, you're going to have certain things you want to do on your UX. So you may have 10 or 20 of these. So it allows you to trigger them from different locations, but then manage it in a central place. And another thing is that if someone else inherits your code and you have to go in there, instead of them having to open up a whole bunch of buttons and find out what's going on, they can literally go right to this and see all the different JavaScript actions that you've done there. And remember, it's not just action JavaScript. I can add a new JavaScript action here. I'll go show alert. And I'm going to go ahead and go in here in this alert. And I could actually put in my own little alert, hello. So it's sort of like my little function library. Okay. So now I've got this thing called show alert. So I'm going to go to this button right here. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to insert this code to show my alert. And now, if I fix that, and I run it, what happens is when they click this button, it actually calls the action JavaScript and shows that alert. Now, if I ever need to change that, now instead of me going into a button and figuring out where the JavaScript is, because they could be pretty complicated, I can go into this alert and I can just change it right here. And anywhere this is triggered, we'll now use that. And I didn't actually have to adjust the button. So very important, the concept, and it's not model view controller, but it is you're separating your code into a library of actions, and then your user interface elements do not have any code associated with it. Because if I click here, this action JavaScript is intimately tied to this button. And the only way for me to get this to work is either copy it to another button or use a trick where you can say, click that hidden button, but that's really kludgy. Now, by moving that over into here, anytime I need to adjust it, I just go in here and adjust it, and I'm done. I don't have to find the button that had to change with. I didn't have to figure it out. I can copy it and paste. I can trigger this from multiple buttons. So I hope that's kind of clear where the benefit of now using, and one of the reasons we put it, because we want people to start using this methodology of think about your user interface. First, think about the different actions, updating lists, synchronized lists, bringing down client-side data cache, writing little JavaScript functions that need to go. If you put them all in here, then you clearly separate your code from the user interface element so that I can literally trigger them from anything on my user interface element. And what you'll find is, again, for simple apps, not a big win because, it's a couple other steps. But for more complex apps, now it's much easier for you to kind of control and manage that code. And more importantly is if another person picks up, they're able to easier digest and figure out what's going on because they can go, oh, all of my actions are in a central sort of location. And if I find a button, I can look at that button and go, oh, it's show message and map. I just go to here and find my show message match, and that's where I can look and see what is going on there. And instead, and now when I modify, I know if anywhere else that is called, it's going to be called correctly. And you'll find that if you start adopting this methodology, you're just going to find you're in more control. You have a cleaner environment, structured, and I find it's where I'm going with everything I'm doing from in that standpoint here. It's pretty handy stuff from that standpoint. It goes from there. And you'll see if you look at any of our templates, there's a very similar concept. And I'd like to go ahead and show that to you real quick, just to explain it there. Note I've done in JavaScript Actions because we want to encourage you to do JavaScript. But you could also, if you want to, in JavaScript functions, is write your series of functions here, which is the same concept. You have a central library of these functions. So an example of that, let me go ahead and show, is that I could go on to a control here. I'm going to add a new button. And on that button, I'm going to put some JavaScript. Okay. Now what I've done is embedded that JavaScript in this button. So if I need to change it, I need to find the button and change it there. Well, a better methodology is the following, is either use JavaScript action and create it there, or if it's just pure JavaScript, you can actually here go to function. I can say show new message. And I'll go in here and say alert, new message. Okay. Now I'll go back here, I'll go to this button here, and instead of actually putting the code there, I'm going to say show message. I want to make sure did I put that? Let me go back and look at this. That's why I like JavaScript, because I don't have to remember the naming and all that stuff, but or JavaScript actions. Show new message is what it's called. So I go here and I'll go back to this button right here, and I'm going to say show new message. Okay. So what happens now is when I click on this button, it actually calls that function and doesn't work. So what did I do here? Show new message. Oh, I think I know what it is. It's got to be function show new message. I'm not a big JavaScript guy, so bear with me. Go here. Okay, there's my new message there. And if I ever have to change anything, instead of going to the button and modifying this JavaScript here, which was there, I can just go right to my JavaScript functions and say, change it, add the other functions, etc. And I'm done. And therefore I've centralized my code. And actually I'm going to go ahead and go in here and I'm going to create a new one here. And and this is much more powerful when you start using our templates for there. I'm going to go ahead here. I think I have iPhone X styling. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and you'll notice that I've opened up, here is a sample template. If you're going to do an iPhone X, start with this template because it handles the control, the area up top of the screen and a whole bunch of other iPhone X kind of specific capabilities. But you'll notice in here that there is no embedded JavaScript in any of these things. In every one of these, I'm calling a function, or this function is calling a function. And if I go to JavaScript functions, you'll see here are where all those functions are. So our standard templates are now starting to say, don't actually embed any JavaScript anywhere in the user interface itself. Put it here in a function library and then trigger that from there. So this is the same kind of concept. Now, what I suggest is try to use the JavaScript actions, and you get away from those kind of things. In JavaScript actions, as I showed before, I can actually insert JavaScript right here. But the nice thing is when I trigger it, I actually use, I don't have to worry about function like what I did before. But if you want to, you can also go here and create JavaScript functions and do the same kind of methodology. But it's good design practice. The more you do this, the more control you're going to see it, the more reproducible, because here's the cool thing, guys. Let's say down the road, I'm going to do something similar. Well, all I have to do is go in here, copy this, go into my new UX, paste it into the JavaScript functions, and boom. Now I can transport that code that I spent so much time working out from one UX to another or one project to another. And therefore, I'm not having to recreate the wheel. And more importantly, I'm not having to go, okay, I had it on a button. Where was that button? You know, that was like 2 months ago. Where's that JavaScript that meant to do that? Oh, I'll go into this button right here. Oh, it's right here, drag it out here. I can just say, oh, I know I put my JavaScript stuff here, and I'm able to do it from there. And by the way, check this out. You can copy and paste these options. So notice here, like for instance, if I have a new project here and I want to use this show message and map, I can click here and say, copy these actions to the clipboard. Okay, done. So now I can go to my other here. I can go into my JavaScript actions and I can say paste those actions. And now my action is now in that new UX and I didn't have to do any like, now it's ready to go. So as long as I have a map and some other stuff on this interface, I'm good to go. So there's a lot of built-in functionality for code reuse that's built on that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause at this point, open it up for questions. But that was our tips and trips for this week. One is friendly dates, make your users think less, always a benefit. They'll appreciate it. And also with JavaScript actions and also JavaScript libraries, you can centralize your code and that will allow you to have a better development environment, a more professional one, really engineer your solutions versus just putting a bunch of code all over your interface. And you'll find the more you use those techniques, the more productive you'll be and the sort of the stronger your apps, the more reliable, the easier to test you're going to find your apps and applications.
Very cool. So just a couple questions quickly about the JavaScript action section. And
yes.
then we also had some ones related to the friendly date. So why don't we
cool.
in reverse order here. So previously, to get to JavaScript actions, if you don't have the latest version, how did you get to that?
Yes, thank you. You go to, at your UX, you go to menu, JavaScript action editor. So even if you haven't upgraded, you can start using this technique today.
Okay.
The thing I wanted to feature, and it really kind of brought it to my forefront, I was working with one of my clients and one of our clients, and he was going, oh, actually, I was showing him something I built, and he goes, oh, hey, what's that JavaScript action thing over on the left? And I go, oh, that's this, and it just triggered this. You know, there's a reason it was put over here on the left, and the reason why is it's kind of buried here. And now it's front and center, and it's a design sort of methodology or implementation methodology that we would encourage all people. And that was what our development team said, you know what, we really want people to be defining a series, not data series, sorry, define a series of JavaScript actions and then associate those with user elements. Well, by bearing it in this menu here, it's not front and center. By putting it here, it kind of just drives that behavior. So that's why we did it here. Great question.
Cool. Now, you had mentioned one of the nice things about using this JavaScript actions or those that code section in general is that you could keep everything centralized. So when you go back into a UX, you can quickly find a code snippet. But it doesn't entirely solve the problem of, when I click on a button, you know, and I need to change, like, let's say you have 100 buttons on there and you've discovered that the 70th button, something isn't right. You still have to go into the UX to find what the 70th button is calling. Isn't that the case?
Correct. Yes.
But
Although let's go
conceivably,
ahead and
couldn't you comment your code? Because that was someone pointed out. But couldn't you also probably, I mean, if you stayed on top of it, comment the code to say, this is the function and it's used here, here, and here to make it probably a little bit easier
yes,
for you.
we've had, that's a great point because as your apps get like this is very simple, but as your apps get complicated, you could have 10 or 15 panels and things kind of buried in panels. I don't, let me see here, JavaScript action, um, show new message. I think this find, yeah, it only finds, yeah, it only finds physical elements there. We are working on improving kind of like how you can view where things are. So that's a very good observation. And it's something that's been brought up before. And I know our development team is looking at when you get more complicated, how can you kind of find where stuff is in your user interface? Um, so
Cool.
there's really not a method right now. Um, Again, at this point, to kind of find where things are triggered in a button. Like what would be kind of cool is that if you went into Action JavaScript but you and said, hey, where's this called? And you could click a button and say, where's this called? It could tell you where that show is, but it's sort of like a reverse
Mhm.
mapping of the, right here we can see all the different JavaScript actions, but where are these triggered from? Which would be
So
kind of
that
cool.
would, yeah, that would be a very cool enhancement to say, oh, and this is being used by this object, this object, this object, and this object. In most cases, it'd be
Correct.
buttons, but it could be any other kind of event handler on any, maybe on a
Yeah.
list control or something like that.
Now, that's where if your JavaScript, if you put them in here, it's easy because I can just find in here, but you're still not showing, well, where was this found? Or where was this triggered from? And it happened to be triggered here. So the only way I could really find that out is go in here. But as Dave said, there is a trick. I'm going to go here, go to this button, show new message. I'm going to copy this real quick. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to comment that. Okay. Kind of cool, huh? So let's go here.
Yep.
Let's copy that and go to this button. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a comment here. And now I have a comment there that shows what's going on inside here. And maybe I want to change it a little bit there. So at least I don't have to dig in. I can kind of look through there. And I don't think it's the find. I don't think it searches the comments, but if it did, we would saw. Oh yeah, here it does.
There you go.
Check it out.
And in fact, Chris Martin, who's waving his hand,
And is much smarter than me.
would like to comment on it as well. Hello, Chris. Are you there?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, actually, someone showed me that he is starting work on that because that was one of the things that I brought up at a meeting was a way that, you start calling, you can actually go in on a button click, have it call an action JavaScript. That action JavaScript then in turn calls a JavaScript function. So it's really hard to find where things are buried. So that is something that's being worked on right now as far as a way to be able to trace and find out where things are being called from. But if you can go back to the JavaScript functions, also at the bottom of there, because once you get a whole bunch of JavaScript functions in there, yeah, you have the ability to find it right there. So if you have like 100 functions in there, just to show them that that's an easy way to find which functions are in there. If you go back to the sample application that you just put in there, which had more functions.
Oh yeah.
So there you go. Then you can see
Yeah.
all the different functions are in there. So it's an easy way to find things afterwards if you have quite a few functions in there.
And by the way, that
everything
works.
in one place.
And also, if you go into XBasic, same thing is that if you define a set of functions in here, they'll appear down here.
Yeah.
So there's some really cool things you can do. Again, handy things. One other thing too, which is kind of cool, is that sometimes you're working on stuff and you go, God, you know what? I know I'm going to have to come back and look at this. So I can go here and I can create what's called a bookmark. And I'm going to insert a bookmark here and I'm going to call this Hello World bookmark. Okay. So it's got a special / comma, comma, hello world. Now let's say I'm working on this. Obviously I could search for that, but also if I go right here, I can go right to that code.
Oh, that's handy.
Which is a cool little feature. Yeah. Isn't that neat? So this will show you the different functions, but you can insert your own bookmarks. And instead of even going here and going find hello world or whatever it is and saying, oh, I misspelled it, etc., you can just go back in here and go there. And where this is really powerful is when you're doing debugging, especially in XBasic, you can insert that where you've been doing your stuff. So if you happen to close and reopen the XBasic, you can quickly get back to exactly where you want to go. And that's kind of a cool little feature. And you can put those anywhere. So I can go down here and I can say, you know, let's do this. We'll call this toggle. Okay. And so I will go here and I can go to my hello world, or I can go down to my toggle, and it takes me right to those two locations. Like, so if I'm at the top of the screen, I can go right here and go to toggle, boom, I'm right there. So those are kind of like, the bookmarks are meant more for like a bookmark. I got to remember to go back to here because I know I'm going to be debugging it tomorrow, and I don't want to have to search for everything that goes in there. And that's a handy little tool also. But just to let you know, and just kind of go back to this real quick, even before we do any of that, where is it? No, which one is it? It's this one right here. Go ahead and use this technique. So where you have a button, you can go ahead and put any kind of comment on here. And I would probably just use whatever the action JavaScript is. Like in this case, it's the run. I'm just going to go run action, show alert. Oops, no, I don't want to cancel. I want to go here to the comment, and I'm going to say run action, show alert, and I'm going to go here, and it's just function show new message. So I can go, oh, this is run action show alert, Jackson. There it is. I changed that, save it, and now I know there. So I don't have to go in here, oh, it's run action show alert, then go here. So I've saved 2 or 3 clicks. And the other thing that's powerful, as I showed, is I can go in here and say show alert, and notice it's basically exposing the underlying JavaScript in this button. And you know, you got to be judicious about this, because if you try to copy the whole function into the comments, it will let you to do that, but it may screw up there. But at least you can give that as kind of a quick and dirty to kind of do that. And that's actually, thank you for whoever brought that up, because this is a really easy way for you to kind of, again, make it easy. So like when someone inherits, and that's all the key, is that on Teams, if someone inherits your work, you want to make it easy for them to be able to dissect or do forensic work to say, I got to fix a bug. How would I do that? And go, oh, this button is causing the problem. Oh, go run action, go here, go in here. I can immediately find where I want to go. And they're not having to dig stuff out and figure out where it is. And the code's not embedded on specific buttons. So good point. Thank you.
Very cool. Now, if we could jump back to friendly dates, we had a couple people asking a very similar question, and that is, I would like to have both the regular date and the friendly date displayed at the same time. So I'd like it to say Friday, but I'd also like it to say 6, 7, 2, or whatever June is.
So demanding.
They are, absolutely. How would you go about doing that?
That's a really good question. The answer is I have no idea.
Oh, come on. Sure you do.
On
change, you could do you could update another
field.
Well,
I'm just thinking I wonder if there's a formatting that's built into here.
That lets you both set the, I see what you mean. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of a cool feature to be able to show both that and then right after it, the friendly date.
Yeah.
But what you could do is the following is, let's try and do this. Okay, so my cool date. So I'm going to add a text box. I'll go annoying feature request.
What feature request? Come on.
Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my calculated field expression to be basically my cool date, because my stuff is cool. Yeah. So you'll notice now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this. And by the way, that's another trick. I want to make this 25% of the width. So I just have to do that.
I didn't know about that. Very
Isn't that
cool.
cool? So instead of having to
Yeah.
go over here and go up
And
here
going finding that
and
one
say, oh, I
property
want
because
this
you're
to be
setting widths all the time. That's
33%,
fantastic. Yeah.
I can just go click on this. And by the way, it works like on all these. So I can say I want all of these to be 33%, and it just does that. I saw that in a Selwyn video.
Nice.
Okay, so here's 2 days ago. So now I can go into this right here, and I can set my date formatting. Where is it here? Oh, I'm going to make that a calendar field, date field. And so now it knows it's a date field. Okay, that's the default. So now I can go in here to the, where is it? Date item style. Where do I set the style? Display format, display format. Or maybe go here to date format. Okay. I wonder why it's not showing. Oh, it's probably because I'm doing it. I'd have to play with that, but notice it's showing the same. So I have to play with the formatting of this date right here.
Hmm.
But if I change this, you'll see that it's updating this. And by the way, I can go here and make that be a label because we don't care about the date picker. Let's see. So now I can go here and I can say, this is this. So that's Wednesday, June 13th.
Cool.
15th. So that's how I do it. I just
So
need
share that
to,
one more time if you wouldn't mind. I see that you've left the
okay,
first date as a regular date control with the friendly date format, but then you have another
correct.
text box, and that text box you have done what to?
The key here is what I did is I set
Calculated.
the calculated field expression to
Uh-huh.
point to my other date field.
Fantastic.
And that's so, and it's nice is because anytime I change this date field, the system is it's client side, so it'll automatically show that there. And then a matter of you just have to do the formatting of what that date will be. And I think you can even do that in here. I think there's some functions here, but more importantly, you would set the formatting of this field so it displays it in
It
the
is one of those.
format you want.
I think maybe we just are having trouble
I know
finding.
where it is. So this is
Um,
going to do that. So good
Wonderful.
question.
So you could put those, you could line them side by side, and you could get it exactly as you wanted it. Also, if you could go back to the date picker for a moment, it seemed to
Yes.
show the when you're looking at the format for friendly date at the bottom, it says JavaScript command date object to relative date. It looks like it's actually showing you the
Oh yeah.
JavaScript formula that you could use in a control any other place if you chose to.
Yeah. So yep, exactly. What it's letting you do is this is showing you, I guess, the JavaScript you would put to
Mhm.
point at the date object, which would be in this case, whatever, in JavaScript, there's things called the date object like now or date. But
Mhm.
notice when I go to calendar, it shows you that format there. So you kind of use this to design it, and then you know what this JavaScript
You see
command
the
is, so you can
JavaScript
do
just
it there.
behind it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent. Let me see if there are any other questions along those two. We do have a whole bunch of questions, but unfortunately we only have 90
Yeah, I'm so sorry, man. Yeah.
And then we leave for 3 weeks because
I know, so
that's just
mean.
how we
By
roll.
the way, we did get some questions in email, and I know people are like, God, I gotta wait that long. So we're gonna take a look at those and see what we can do to get it out, information out to people and
We will go
queue
ahead and
them
do
up for
send
next time.
questions. Right. Send
Yeah,
questions to guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com. We may not be doing the webinars, but we will be checking our email. So
and trying to give you guidance. And so we really appreciate that, and we apologize we weren't able to get to those. We don't want to say, hey, send us emails, and guess what? We'll ignore them for 3 weeks. It's kind of not our goal. So we'll figure out what we can do. And then what we will do is do a recap on our next one for those questions to share with everybody, because we really
exactly.
appreciate what you do for the community.
Plus, we'll be starting the new API stuff, which is very exciting. That was one of the
Yes.
questions. In fact, the question specifically was, can you show me an example of API consuming data from a type of weather service? So I could see the weather. Maybe I give it a zip code or a latitude, longitude.
Yeah.
So
Do us a favor. Email us if you.
yeah,
If you don't mind, email that request to guides. And just the reason why is our chats sometimes disappear. We don't always have control over that. So if you
exactly.
do that, and we'll include that as one of our key ones. We really, and if anybody else has any questions about APIs,
Yeah.
let us know. I mean, we help us help you in terms of what you want to learn about APIs. We know what we want to tell, but we want to make sure we're hitting all the high notes for your teams.
Wonderful. Well, Dion, thank you very much. We have come to the end of our time. Thank you, everyone who attended, especially those who asked questions, and you can continue to ask questions. Guides at alphasoftware.com, and we'll get back to you. We will be back in 3 weeks, resuming our program. We will be on vacation for one and on hiatus for one more, but we look forward
Hey,
to
and
seeing you
happy
when you get
birthday,
back.
America.
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America.
Well done.
Is 4th of July technically it's Independence Day, so it's like, hey, happy birthday.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm
exactly.
gonna say it anyway. Happy
There you
birthday,
go.
America.
Right.
And for people who are outside America, thank you for joining us. And we're
Thanks
not
very
that
much. We
annoying.
do appreciate you joining.
Yeah.
Yep.
And please let us continue to travel to your countries to visit as tourists, and we'd appreciate that.
Thanks again. Take care and goodbye.